Welcome to this webinar organized by the Company of Masterminds of India. And as usual, this time we have a new subject. The subject is inland waterways. And as you know, inland waterways has been sort of promoted a lot by our government, by our Prime Minister especially. He's very much, personally taking interest into this. And to address us on this issue, we have none other than Captain Inderveer Solanki. As you know, his initial stands for IV Solanki, and he also represents IB, that is inland waterways. So that's a coincidence and just on the lighter side. But having said that, yes, he is an expert on this subject and he advises the government of India. So we are going to hear from him. I think probably almost all of you know, IME is conducting a seminar on methanol as an alternate fuel, or rather the fuel of the future. So India has already huge plans of production of methanol, which is already, in advanced stages. And one of the important aspect of today's talk is going to be transportation of methanol within the country using the inland waterways. So this is what is Captain Inderveer Solanki's talk today about. Now, before we go to that, a little bit about CMMI. All of our old members who know the basic structure of CMMI, I don't want to repeat that. We do it quite often during international seminars where we have people from abroad. But I think today we have our own crowd here. So let me tell you something about, tomorrow we are holding IOD, Institute of Directors, has agreed to hold a sort of a 2-day event to, we're going to conduct a 2-day event on, sorry, I'm in the office, so phone will keep ringing. And I just want to give you an overall idea to all of you what it is all about, because a lot of people don't know what is this IOD, what is this Institute of Directors. Basically, it conducts a program for the directors. Directors means director of a company. And I would go a step ahead and say it's not only the directors, it can also be used by any people in the managerial positions, like general manager or even a head of the departments or, those kind of things. So just a quick, I would like to share what is happening tomorrow and day after. It's a 4-day event. So Saturday, Sunday, this weekend, Saturday, Sunday, next weekend. So let me just share my screen to show you what is going to be, in the kitty for people who attend this course. We have had several confirmations. People have this is not a free seminar, it's a paid one because it's very, very professional. So it covers, if you can look at this on the left hand side, it covers the Companies Act and other corporate laws. It covers the board's legal environment, the duties, responsibilities and liabilities of a director. Then there is a break here, let's break, followed by corporate strategy. After that, we have corporate governance, enhancing stakeholder value. Then we have a board, board of directors, strategic foresight and advancement of exponential technology. Again, a short break. Then we have a enterprise risk management. I'm just giving you a broad idea of the subjects which will be covered. A financial literacy for the directors and driving financial performance. This is the duty of the directors. Then for independent directors, improving corporate credibility and governance standards. This is another subject which will be covered. Then we have the strategic leadership of corporate boards and maximizing effectiveness and accountability. So the next day starts with corporate sustainability, environmental, social and economic responsibility, sensitizing board of directors, organizational and board dynamics, ethics and communications. And then again, we have a short break followed by learning into practice, boardroom simulation exercise. There'll be some practicals, which will be given. And this, I thought I should just share with you because this is what is happening in CMMI. And those who have already booked for this program is very nice. Those who are not booked, you intend to book, you still have time. But those who intend to do it in future, you are absolutely welcome, because CMMI will keep conducting such professional, training and awareness programs. So I would sort of urge our members to take advantage of these things. Otherwise, when you do such courses, in UK or in Sweden, they cost you thousands of dollars, literally thousands of dollars. And here we have in CMMI for literally for peanuts, you get this kind of information. So that's it about our latest program on IOD. Let's come back to our today's subject. Captain Inderveer Solanki will now come up on the stage. For that, I would invite Captain Shashi Kumar, our CEO, to please take on the proceeds from here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And also thank you for giving a little insight into our program of IOD. Thank you very much. A very good evening to all of you. I would like to invite Captain Sudhir Subedar, who is going to be the moderator today. He would be introducing the speaker, the topic, and moderate the session. And also he will follow up with the Q&A. A few words about Captain Subedar, the former CEO of ICSA, past president of Indian Coastal Conference Shipping Association, and a fellow of CMMI. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Shashi Kumar. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, part of the world. Honorable members of the House, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure to introduce my colleague and friend who has worked almost the same time as I have recently on the national waterways. As Captain Pradhan mentioned, his initials begin with IB, Inderveer Solanki, a graduate of WMU and closely associated with the authority that deals with inland waterways in India since established in 1985. He is a consultant to the Jal Vikas Marg initiative programs, has been working on training of personnel in this sector, and is pursuing a PhD from Indian Maritime University. My first brush with this sector, and it almost finishes today, the Ocean Sparkle having been taken over by Adani. I ventured on a trip from Haldia to Allahabad in 1985 with an oversized cargo of 600 tons reactor. Because the water ran out in Allahabad sometime about Ganesh Chaturthi in 1985, we could not proceed further uncharted waters up to Farrukhabad to discharge this ODC to a place called Bareilly, where Rajiv Gandhi IFCO plant was coming up. The Farakka barge had just opened, and IWI was just being established. It is a pity that over these years, little significant change may have happened, but otherwise there is little to write home about. There are many reasons for neglected sector of the waterways. One is the road and rail has an alternative. Unlike sea-going ships, where there is no alternative, and 90% of the trade does move by international sea routes. One of the reasons for lack of investment and interest is that there are no initiatives to attract investment into this sector, particularly the kind of vessels that are required to navigate on the rivers. They ought to be safe, but more importantly, they need to be built for purpose. What we have and what pilot programs we'll hear about are less efficient and older vessels, which defeats the purpose of IVIWT, which is about 30% cheaper than any other mode of transport, most economic and most environment friendly, particularly in these days of emission control talks of GHG, etc. Modal shift as a concept has been around for some time. Incentivizing modal shift has been a challenge. Several times the government has attempted, and only Kerala has been able to implement something like tons per kilometer. No other state, no other government of India has been able to leverage or incentivize that leverage for making the coastal or inland waterways happen, or seamless transfer from foreign going to coastal to inland water transfer. As of now, today, I have 3 million tons of wheat that need to move from Gangetic Plain to Chennai. If no inland water transport is available, that would usually go by road and rail. One can see, if traveling on rail, as I do quite often, Chettinad cement goes, rakes of Chettinad cement go from Chennai to Uttar Pradesh, almost on a daily basis. This could easily go by coastal route and via NW1 to Allahabad. And one hopes that in due course of time, that is what we will see and hear today of the opportunities that are knocking on the doors. I also believe the sector is overregulated and lacks enthusiasm from stakeholders. My members or ICC members tried very hard to enter into this sector, but both INSA and ICSA do not seem to have their members attracted to this sector anymore. The ethanol, methanol opportunity, which we will hear shortly, hope brings some relief to the ears of the membership and attract investment where it is due. That is dredging, which is the most important aspect of inland waterways, 2.5 meters of dredging, emergency services, night navigation, simple rules that could be implemented and adhered to by the practitioners. And one hopes that the outcome of the webinar would go a long way in making a case to the powers that be. At the end of about 40-45 minutes of the presentation of Captain Solanki, I would request all of the participants online here now to clearly put their question in the chat box, which I can pick up, and time permitting, get an answer either from Captain Solanki, myself, or any of the participants And if time does not permit, I request CMMI to make a note of those questions which have not been answered for answering later. I now
Okay,
invite
Subedar.
Captain Solanki to kickstart his presentation on the topical topic of opportunities in inland water transport. Over Inderveer to you.
First of all, I would like to thank CMMI and also Captain Subedar for giving, for introducing me. Can you hear me loud and clear?
Yes, yes, go ahead.
Yes, sir.
And I have started sharing the screen. Can you see the screen?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Loud and clear and clear.
Okay. The topic is actually very close to my heart. I've been working in this sector for now almost more than a decade, and been on the field most of the time. There is you can say there is a good opportunity for the seafarers to come into the sector. I think a number of times I have highlighted that one should not draw comparison between the main shipping or coastal shipping and inland water transport. The inland water transport per se is more akin to road transport, and there is a, you can say, competition with road and rail. So with this in mind, one needs to actually look at the sector, that how we can bridge a gap or supplement the other modes of transport by inland water transport. Now, who are the players of the sector? The players of the sector are basically the cargo is the first and foremost requirement. The second is the waterway. So if there is no cargo to be moved, then there would not be any need for waterway to be developed, terminals to be developed, vessels or facilitators. So first and foremost is the cargo. So one has to ensure that there is cargo. Now, cargo which is being moved presently on waterways is mainly the construction material, that is, you can say, fly ash, pond ash, stone chips, cement. So this is the majority of the cargo that is being moved, and coal being moved on the waterways. We need to actually migrate to other cargo commodities like containers and the specialized cargo like maybe ethanol, methanol, or other such chemicals. There is a need actually for moving chemicals through the waterways, because it is, you can say, one of the most friendly with regards to environment, with regards to number of accidents. There are least number of accidents that happen on the waterways. So that is number one. So we need to look at the cargo. Second is the waterways. The waterways development has, you can say, has happened, and it is happening, but waterways itself or development of the waterways is a slow process, and the siltation takes place. So we need to actually know the waterway. Instead of saying that develop the complete waterway, it is not necessary to develop the complete waterway. The waterway stretch in which we are interested or in which there is a possibility of cargo movement needs to be focused upon, and the development has to happen. When we look at, actually, most of the time we think that there is no water in the rivers. I would say that when I look at the length of the river, say 1620 kilometers or say 1300 kilometers, it is not the complete river that is silted up. There are shoals in the river which would be roughly, I would say, an estimate or guesstimate of about 20%. So that means the remaining river has got water. There are pools of water which is available. Only what is required is, you can say, a programmed way of development of the waterways. Terminals, again, terminals, we know there is no need to develop huge terminals. What is required is small jetties and terminals so that a small vessel can berth, or even a floating jetty. I've been actually propagating that mostly our requirement will be met if there are floating jetties, especially in areas where the river shifts. In the areas where the morphology allows a terminal to be built, then the terminal would stand good. Then the vessels, as Captain Suvita rightly mentioned, that what we have, the vessels presently we have are not fit for purpose. It is not only fit for purpose. What is required is fit for the waterway, because waterway is not only to do with depth. It is to do with restricted waters where a lot of maneuverability is required, stopping at short distances is required. So that is what is very important, plus the engine speed. So you need to have reserve speed, especially when you have following current. So you need the gust of engine. You need to give more power, especially during turns when you are coming down river. So you have to have some reserve power. So that is also a need as far as the vessels are concerned. A number of vessels were brought from Goa to be tried on the Ganga, but they failed miserably. The next requirement is facilitators. Now, it was one of the most unregulated sector. I actually, till now, the regulations have started to come in, which would be, you can say, in a way, uniform in application. Because earlier what was required is that a vessel operating in one particular state, if it moved to another state, it need to re-registered within 3 years. So that is being done away with. Something also similar with regards to manning. A certificate issued by government of West Bengal was not applicable in Goa or Kerala backwaters. So one needed an endorsement. So these things have been taken care by the new Inland Vessel Act. Now, when we look at logistics, we know that the logistics cost in India is very high. I will not dwell upon this, but also we know that what is happening is a very, you can say, two ambitious projects have been launched. One is the logistic department in the Commerce Ministry, and second is the Gati Shakti program. So these programs are, you can say, there to facilitate and ease logistics. So, and what is required, I think, how the CMMI and the members can actually assist in the sector is, number one is with regards to the cargo. Now, a shipper is normally very afraid of water. And then when he has got truck available or rail is available, then he is happy with moving with the trucks, because that is what the mode he's moving. That is where our members who are interested in the sector need to actually have hands-on experience or hands-on information to do hand-holding with the shippers. What is most important is hand-holding from, you can say, first mile to the last mile. What the shippers are looking at is end-to-end solution. And end-to-end solution means that one has to actually also make available the first mile connectivity as well as the last mile connectivity, including the water transport. So that means the complete multimodal chain needs to be built in. So that is one. The second requirement is to, now when we look at, I will actually dwell on movement of ethanol. It is actually a great opportunity for the sector and for all of us to actually would say that use our professionalism to promote the IWT sector as well as coastal shipping. We will see that what are the programs as far as ethanol is concerned. Now, as I said, that inland water transport is one of the most sustainable mode of transport in terms of, you can say, environment, in terms of social benefits, in terms of cost. The costs are definitely cheaper as compared to road. As compared to rail, if the distance is same, then the waterway will be cheaper. But we know that the waterway, rivers are meandering, so the distances may be longer than normal. So that is what all one needs to do. One cannot just go to the shipper and say, waterway is cheaper and this is the cost. One needs to do the complete OD pair. So you need to calculate the distance between the origin and destination pair, and then compare the cost. So then it becomes comparable, and one can actually market accordingly. Environment benefits we are aware of. Whatever the benefits are in shipping are also similar as far as the waterway is concerned. When we're looking at OD pairs, we need to look at basically water link advantage. If there are OD pair is on the water, we can do short distances of 20 to 40 kilometer or 20 dry liquid bulk. That is the cross river ferry. That is one of the most economical and profitable business that is ongoing. And wherever there is a pre or end haul, then one needs to ensure that the distance if there is a one end connectivity required, that means either last mile connectivity or the first mile connectivity is required. In that case, the distance viable would be minimum 100 kilometers. Then only one should look into the water transport. And if there is a pre and end haul by other modes of transport, then the distance what you should look at for moving by waterway in the range of about 250 to you can say about 250 kilometers. Now, why are we interested, or why should we be interested in the sector? Basically, the drivers for change are there. The government policy, there are a number of policies that are actually, you can say, friendly to the sector. We know Sagarmala project, we know World Bank funding is there, the logistic policy, the Gati Shakti, but we need to actually build a case around it, and then you can say go to the government. The growth in demand, the demand for logistics is there. It is not that there is no cargo available. Cargo is available. What is required is economical cost and the connectivity. Then supply gap exists because the number of barges which are fit for purpose and fit for waterway are very few. Capacity to grow, because as I said, ethanol itself, ethanol, methanol, and other areas of logistics which the waterway has not looked at all. Chemicals, containers, one has not looked at all. It's a niche segment because when we compare to road and rail, it is different, very few players in the sector, and return on investment is good if one makes actually exercise due jurisprudence and due diligence to actually go ahead. The policies, World Bank funded projects are there in National Waterway 1. Government of West Bengal has also got certain projects going on. Government of Assam and Bangladesh is actually also has got a lot of funding for development of the waterway. Increased budget of IWI, development of additional waterways, Inland Vessel Act, the Waterways Bill 2016 adding a number of national waterways. Incentives are there, no GST on IWT. Shipbuilding incentives, it was 20%, presently it will be about 14%. Then inland vessels can also operate on the coastal corridor within 5 nautical mile. Then IBP route is now open-ended. That means earlier it used to expire every 2 years. Now it is open-ended. It does not. So it is valid. You can say till a country says, no, we don't want the protocol to continue. With Bhutan and Nepal, we are actually in the process of tying up things with customs so that those cargoes to those countries move. Sagarmala project for the funding of you can say waterway development, mainly jetty development. The project is there for the state government. The central government provides 50% of the funding, 50% is provided by the state government. Amrit scheme, which was basically, if you look at the buses, etc., that is plying in major cities, is under Amrit scheme. Earlier, waterway was not part of the scheme. Now, waterway is part of the Amrit scheme. So that means for ferry transportation in areas wherever there is a possibility of using waterway for people transportation, then this benefit of the scheme can be taken care there. Then promoting cargo movement on inland water transport and modal shift. As I said, that 23 waterways are to be developed. This is the, you can say, 2030 goal of the government. Then capitalize additional cargo and ferry potential for building multimodal connectivity with 4 neighboring countries, leverage private participation, enhancing river cruise tourism, developing urban water transport, as I said, that with regards to the project. Then another project which is there is Earth Ganga project, and it is expected presently in the last year we've done 100 million metric tons, and it is expected that we will be able to do 140 million metric tons by 2030. Just a snapshot of what was there in the essay format in the previous slide. This is the National Waterway 1, which I will be basically talking of, mainly just taking as a example case. When we look at the waterway, this waterway is a Jalmarg under Jalmarg Vikas project for development from Haldia right up to Varanasi, about 1300 kilometers. The depth is to be maintained 2.5 kilometer up to Patna, and from Patna to Varanasi 2.2 kilometers. The work is in progress in this waterway. This is the Indo-Bangladesh protocol route, which is basically connecting National Waterway 2 to Haldia, Kolkata. Another very good thing that has happened is that there's a link. If you look at on the just at middle left, there is a place called Dhulyan. Just there, the link between Dhulyan, that means Rajshahi to Aricha and Northeast, it would be possible from National Waterway 1. Earlier, one would have to come from Dhulyan to Haldia and then go up to Aricha and go to our Northeast Pandu. So this will shorten a distance of roughly about, say, 600 kilometer distance will be short. It will help in, you can say, reducing further cost. What are the requirements? The capital cost for following: dredging is required, construction of terminal, jetty, provision of infrastructure, etc., construction of shallow water barges, pusher tugs, self-propelled vessels, construction of fuel efficiency of vessels, and use of green fuel. So I'm basically rushing through so that I can come to actually the main topic for discussion, so that I'm giving you an overview of the sector. So very few inland vessels and barges are available. Average age of the vessels is over 15 years. Average size of the vessels for IWT presently operating is say about 1,000 metric tons. In Goa, it is 2,000 tons, 3,000 tons. But on the Ganga, it is basically, you can say average would be 1,000 tons. That would be operable. Most vessels operate on MDO at present. The training, if you look at manpower, so we have one institute, which is National Inland Navigation Institute at Patna, that caters for, you can say, at central level. Then we have state level institutes at Merita. There is a school at Britona, Goa. Then there is a crew training center at Chandbali and a crew training center in Assam and a training center in Kochi. Then the training would be required for development of waterways, dredging, construction of material, construction of terminals, construction of vessels, operation of vessels, ferries, management of terminals, surveys, vessel repairs, and ancillaries. So this is what would be the requirement as far as the training is concerned. Now, what is the opportunities? Basically, for vessels, one has to know, has to have vessels of 1,500 metric ton to 2,000 metric ton vessels, though in certain stretches initially I would suggest 750 metric tons of push tug barge flotillas, because the draft will be less and depth also will be less. The cost, roughly, civil construction contractors and engineers, the scope is there for river training. A number of river training works come, which there are just, you can say, a couple of bidders that bid for those contracts, including for construction of, you can say, pontoons also. That means floating terminals as well. So road and rail connectivity, again, requirement. Dredging, capital dredging, maintenance dredging, both the dredging requirement keeps coming, but again, there are very few players who actually bid in the sector. Original equipment manufacturers, basically for cargo, lifting gear, cranes, mainly for rental purposes, all this would be required. Then shipyards, definitely for self-propelled vessels, tugs, barges, pontoons, ferries, and dredgers. So there will be an opportunity for them. Waterway management, bathymetric survey, its navigation, river information system. There is a river information system that is in operation in you can say NW1 up to Farakka stretch, also Patna. So all that would be requiring is management of those resources. And the tender, in fact, as I speak, there is already a tender on the website for management of a river information system on NW1. Terminal operation, vessel pilotage, mooring, cargo handling, other services. That is once the terminal is actually given on PPP mode or on operation mode, commercial operations. Then consultancy, cargo chartering and brokerage. Basically, when I'm looking at cargo chartering, it is not chartering per se in this, but what is required is basically both the complete solution. That means what one would be looking at is construction, financing, and then basically able to charter and the logistics. So it will be a complete solution, and that is what the shipper is looking for. Cargo handling and management, then surveying, vessel design and construction, other services that will be required. I already talked about this. Let us come to basically the ethanol and methanol supply chain. Now, the government is moving way forward. Basically, what has happened is methanol is, as you can say, is being promulgated as a vehicular fuel. So it is driven by the ARIA and IOCL. Ashok Leyland has already developed methanol-driven trucks. It is also being used for cooking fuel. Methanol as marine fuel, we know that certain things they've been already tried out. A number of seminars are also taking place on methanol. Methanol for other projects. Also, it is possible that ethanol can be also converted into methanol. So methanol for power generation also. Now, what is the present demand versus supply, and what is the policy of the government? The ethanol and methanol policy was driven by NITI Aayog. They have actually made a roadmap. So anybody who wants to actually have a look, you can go to NITI Aayog website and you will get you can say roadmap of the ethanol and methanol, you can say plan of the country. What is the roadmap in the years to come? Then each state has developed a policy for promoting ethanol as well as for allowing use of ethanol for industrial purposes as well as for vehicles. So now 10% of blending of ethanol is allowed from April 2022. And the government's policy is to increase it to 20% blending from April 2023. So that is a huge requirement. So if, when we say the present requirement or the supply is only 200 crore liters, what is required is 332 crore liters in 2021 and 685 crore liters by 2025, which is almost 3 times. So that means the requirement of methanol and ethanol, this is not the supply which is given below is for ethanol, not methanol. So that is the 200 liters is basically what is for ethanol. The yellow diagram is for supply and demand in ethanol, and the top one is for methanol. If you look at our, basically we import, our production is only in blue of methanol when we look at the top, rest is imported. Even for imports, what the government has done is it has reduced the tax from 5% to 2%, 2.5%. So that means there is already a policy there also for importing methanol and for use of methanol in industrial and other units. So we clearly see that there is a growth. Now, what the government has done in addition to this, for the production of ethanol, the government has given basically what we call is at interest subsidy. The interest for production of ethanol is, or setting up a plant for ethanol is available at 6%. And the seed money that is required is only 15%. So that means 85% is funded by the bank and the investor is putting only 15%. So we can say, why I'm basically telling all this is that this is where we need to develop a case that we are having for production this kind of subsidy for production of ethanol for you can say lowered interest rates as well as for seed money. Now similar incentive is required for construction of barges or terminals, because eventually what are we looking at is a logistic nightmare to move that kind of volume unless until it is blended at the refinery. Again, movement to the refineries is also a concern. So that means there is a possibility of rather a great opportunity, not possibility, there is a great opportunity to shift or to use inland water transport for transportation of these fuels. Now, this is what is the demand. The ethanol demand, if you look at, this is a projected demand. When we look at 2025, actually, it is roughly about 1,000 crore liters, whereas I had stated only 698. So you can see the difference. Actually, the projected demand is comparatively higher, but the stated demand is lower. But still, we can see that there is a huge gap in the infrastructure requirement. Now, what all is required? If we look at 100 KLD unit, what is the total logistic requirement for a production of 100 kiloliter of ethanol? You can say the grain input is per annum 90,000 metric tons, rice husk is required 50,000 metric tons, and water is roughly about, you can say, 1 lakh tons. The output ethanol per annum will be 33,000 liters, 33,000 metric tons. Cattle feed is again a byproduct, which will be 12,000 metric tons, and fly ash is 36,000 metric tons. So that means there is a logistic requirement of roughly, you can say, about 1 lakh ton per 100 KLD. The oil majors have floated a tender for setting up a production, that means direct purchase from the production units of 10 crore KLD, you can say production. That means we are looking at 10 crore KLD. Now you multiply with that with the numbers here, even if you get 10%, it will be a huge number to be transported. So that is where we have a scope as far as the inland water transport is concerned for this sector. Now, why waterway? Is there a waterway availability there? If you look at the input is water. Water is 1 lakh, you can say per ton, 1 lakh ton per 100 KLD. Now, these are the areas where the production units have been approved. So if you look at the top, it is all along Ganga. So that is where National Waterway 1 comes in. And also, if you look at the round ones in where the other production units, biofuel production units. So you can see in case of Assam, there are units there for movement of methanol from Assam into Haldia or into the other regions. So you can see the complete this north sector, which we call is at Eastern Waterway Grid, Eastern Waterway Transport Grid, which constitutes of National Waterway 1, National Waterway 2, Indo-Bangladesh Protocol Route, and the Odisha Waterway, National Waterway 5. Now, I've just basically come down to the numbers where presently certain units are approved. Roughly about 1,000 KLD is approved in these 4 units. So that is, and which is likely to be in operation in the next 2 to 3 months. So these units are likely to kick in next 2 to 3 months, or even if you say 6 months, if you take on conservative numbers. So one, we have Bhojpur, which is just 60 kilometers from Sinaghat. Gopalganj, 100 kilometers from Chhapra. Again, also we can join into another waterway there. Then we have Purnia, which is 56 kilometers from Manihari, Kundra 60 kilometers from Jamania. So that means the first mile connectivity is within 100 kilometers. In fact, it is within 60 kilometers in most cases. So that means there is a case of inland water transportation. Now, where will they move? Who is the basically consumer of this product? The consumer or whom the production unit has to supply. The production unit has to supply to the oil majors, that is IOCL, HPCL, and these companies. And there is a Baroni, if you can look at, the Baroni is sitting right on the National Waterway 1. So therefore, which is actually a bottling plant as well as a refinery unit. So that therefore, it becomes a case to directly bring methanol or ethanol to these units so that the blending can take place. So from blending, then it can be pumped through pipe directly into the units. Also, the number of petrol pumps, or if we know that most of the population or most of the growth of population has happened on the, you can say, along the banks of the rivers. Now, along Ganga, there are major cities. Now, all these major cities would need ethanol for blending into the petrol pumps. Therefore, again, there is a direct case of transportation, not only to the IOC majors. IOC majors can actually use these barges and supply to the smaller units, distribution units. Another advantage of barging is actually barges are, I always say, they are actually storehouses on the move. So if a barge is there, say 1,000-ton capacity or 2,000-ton capacity barge, so that means I have a 2,000-ton storage capacity available. It will be available with me for 10 days. So that kind of storage is free of cost available, because most of the time what people talk of is what is the inventory cost. I say, what is the storage cost? The storage cost actually takes care of the inventory cost, or in fact, it is better. Now, to construct a tankage or storage of this type of capacity, and if you have barges, so barges may turn out comparatively cheaper, because you have that supply chain ready. So that is where it is, where you can say the barging has a very, very strong case for ethanol. Now, what is required? How do we, you can say, move forward? So initially, I'm just talking of what is the infrastructure required, terminals for handling. So we need to have terminals which can handle ethanol for handling, storage, and distribution of ethanol. Then infrastructure at the terminal, tankage would be required, a pipeline, mainly for pipelines would be required for distribution into, you can say, the petrol pumps of the city. Then specialized barges for transportation of methanol and ethanol. First mile and last mile connectivity, trucks, etc. would be required. Then trained manpower for inland vessels for handling of ethanol and methanol, and trained manpower for terminals. Now, as far as regulations are concerned, regulations for inland vessel construction, we need to have that PISO approval for terminals, course module for handling of methanol and ethanol. Now, coming to the basically conclusion. Now, what is required as far as we as a, you can say, CMMI? So I think what is required is that if we can have a, you can say, committee which can look into the inland water transport with, for the purpose of transportation of ethanol and methanol, and you can say propose a case to the logistic ministry and Gati Shakti that there is a case, there is a, you can say, gap here, and some of the gap can be filled up via inland water transport. As the government is promoting inland water transport, there is a strong case of getting the equivalent, because without logistic, the production is of no use. If I am not able to evacuate the animal feed that is coming out of the ethanol, then there'll be a problem. If I'm not able to supply the raw material or the raw material is not available to the production unit, again, there is basically a logistic failure. So that is where actually the logistic chain has to be built in and thought through properly, and some deep survey with CMMI as a, you can say, non-commercial organization has got a comparatively huge edge with the government for putting the, such case which has got some commercial angle if the you can say other interests participate. So that is, with this I come to conclusion of my presentation. If any question is there, I just for some of you who wants to invest in barge, which is these costs are for dry cargo barge. Presently, the time charter cost for a barge is about 15 lakhs per month. The fuel for 1,000 kilometer will be about 6,000 liters. It will cost, in the present case of 100 rupees, about 6 lakh rupees. And around 5 days, you can say, of 1,000 kilometer, it would normally take 10 days because of certain restrictions. And you can say the cost comes to roughly about 80 paisa per ton kilometer. So this is you can say some sort of an approximate number. One needs to actually work on, but a very good number on which one can work on, provided there are no hurdles in between for making the voyage and the cargo is available. So because one of the major concern is availability of the cargo, that means the turnaround time. If the turnaround time increases from 10 days to 20 days, the cost will change. With this, I'll say thank you. As far as the presentation is concerned, open to questions.
Sir, this is Captain Zafar Sharif from South Andhra. Just I want to ask, what about the possibility of waterways from South Andhra Pradesh to West Bengal and like that?
Basically, that will constitute as coastal movement. When we look at because there is a 5 nautical mile inland vessel corridor, that corridor is available only from December to April. That is December, you can say December, January, February, March, April, only for 5 months. Remaining months, one has to have either RSV 3 or RSV 4 vessel to ply. And the waterway development is taking place. As far as National Waterway 4, it is under, you can say the development is there. Roughly 33% growth of cargo also has happened. But again, it is in a particular, on a particular stretch.
Thank you very much.
So this is Captain Jacob Thomas from Cochin. You said 15 lakhs per month for the barge. You did not mention what is the dead weight of the barge.
2,000 metric ton.
So 2,000 metric tons. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Inderveer. We had 2 questions directly come to you, and you have answered them.
Sir.
The floor is open for more question and answers. I don't see anything posted on the chat box as of now. The 2 questions which were asked were already have been answered. I believe the economical barging is about 2,000 ton at a draft of about 2.25 meters. Both these things are as we speak, and the projection which Captain Solanki has presented for ethanol, as we speak, nothing of this is in country. And even if we take April 22, we would be going way beyond at least 12 to 18 months before we are there. But the opportunity is has clearly been made out, and one should not overlook the fact that the opportunity exists. Any other question from the participants with respect to the presentation that has been?
I think somebody has put in a question there that what would be the total cost of the basically barging. So when we look at actually present barges which are available, bareboat charter of a barge, you can say about 2,000 tons is available at about 8.5 lakh rupees per month. So that is what is the bareboat charter. When we look at the manning requirement, it will be roughly about 3 to 4 lakhs at the most. That is the manning requirement. Rest is your insurance, maintenance, and these costs. So that brings the basically the time charter cost to roughly about 15 lakhs. So these type of barges are available. Bangladesh barges are available at these rates. In fact, one can negotiate in the range of between 13 to 15 lakh per month. That is the cost. As far as the fuel consumption is concerned, these barges would consume roughly about 60 to 70 liters per hour. That is what they would consume. The approximate speed, because it is all tidal area, the speed would be in the range of about 8 to 10 kilometer would be the average speed of these barges. But most of the time, why one takes 10 days or on the IBP route, I'll give you just the commercial number for IBP route. That is for movement of fly ash between Haldia, Kolkata to, you can say, Bangladesh. So what comes to mainly to, if I take the example of Mongla, the approximate cost to Mongla would come in the range of about, you can say, 18 to 20 lakh rupees. And what one gets is about $12 per metric ton is the freight. So that now if you reduce that into number of days, if it is possible to do the voyage in 10 or 15 days, but one needs to actually ensure that there are no slippages as far as loading, unloading, or availability of cargo is concerned. If the cargo is made available, then it makes a very strong case of the barging being a very commercial and viable business. As we speak, I've had a number of discussions with the PwC and World Bank, who are working on a project to get an assurance from the government, mainly from the PSUs, to give certain amount of cargo for the IWT sector. Or in fact, I had actually in my, you can say, sort of interview with them or a questionnaire with them, what I had stated was that when the governments actually float tenders of PSU tenders, like one was there, which is NTPC, or big tenders, which this IOCL or these companies would likely to float. So it is requested that, which can be a point which CMMI can make, is that what is requested is that instead of bidding the complete volume, certain percentage of the volume may be left for new entrepreneurs, or it can be left for what I call is startups. So what, say 10%, if in case of Jindal's, when 3 lakh million metric ton of coal was offered, so that time also I had suggested that at least certain percentage, because what the problem with the government is discovery of price. What is the cost? Now through the tender mode, the government has already discovered the price. Now at the same price, it should offer such cost to professionals of CMMI, who are members of CMMI, such you can say tenders, the members of CMMI or DMET, or you can say marine engineers. So it should be open to them that if they come with a solution for logistics, for movement by IWT, certain volume will be allocated to them. So in that case, what we can do is the professionals like us can actually come in the sector and get the sector to improve, get the sector to kickstart. Because what the problem is, the moment the sector starts, as we must have seen on WhatsApp, a number of accidents have happened in just last month. One of them was actually capsizing of a container vessel in the dock. Now, what happened? Basically, again, it's a very unfortunate incident where somebody has overloaded and negative, you can say, GM, and leading to such a bad reputation. Now, I was actually negotiating when all this happened. I was negotiating certain trade with container. Now that has been put on hold because of such accident. So that is where actually what the government also needs to look at is how to get professionals into the sector. And what I stated, because when a big company takes a tender, it is easy for them because they have certain deep pockets, and they will be able to, you can say, work. But as far as the professionals are concerned, they don't have deep pockets. So what is required for them is, if the assurance is there, we can deliver. That is what we are we have the competence for. So I think that is what we need to actually go to the government and look in, you can say, this regard.
With respect to the drafts available in the waterways, which authority is taking care of this, that the drafts are maintained throughout the waterway, the route? Because I have navigated mostly up to Calcutta for the last 5 years. I'm doing Singapore to Calcutta, and I see that the silting is a major problem in the rivers. And what steps or like, let's say, prospective people who are wanting to invest in this, how would the government make sure that drafts are maintained in the waterways? Who is responsible for that?
See, there are two things. Number one, of course, the Inland Waterway Authority is responsible for maintenance of the draft. Now, before we actually make a case, what is required is, if you, we are all professionals, if you go to the website of Inland Waterway Authority of India, you will find that the LAD, which stands for least available depth, is available for last 5 years. Historical depths are available for measure of the waterways, National Waterway 1, National Waterway 2. So these depths are available. So you can make a case. You will understand if you go through that in which months it will be possible to do navigation. That is one. Second is, there are certain stretches. For example, if I look up to Farakka, the Farakka to Calcutta is mostly navigable. Up to Triveni, there is no problem at all. Round the year, one can go with a depth of 3 meters, of course, with tide. And upstream of Triveni, 2.5 meter depth is available round the year, barring few days where there is a water sharing with Bangladesh. So that is one has to plan. If one plans properly, because that sharing is only for 10 days. So if one plans, then it is possible. But the government is also actually trying to ensure that the depth in that area is available round the year. Between Farakka to Patna, or rather Farakka to Patna, there are certain stretches that have been given to the private vendor on a assured depth dredging contract. So therefore, the vendor has to ensure that the depths are assured for round the year. But again, instead of going to that, you need to look at the historical depths and the depths that are announced. Also, there is a digital, you can say, website. There's a link which is called Pani software, which gives you the depth available on a monthly basis. So, so that means for a particular quarter, you will be able to get the depths which is available in the particular stretch. So that is what, if we look at from India to Bangladesh, the water from Calcutta, or rather from Triveni to Bangladesh, the depths are available of 3 meter around the year. Of course, one has to go with tide, because tide will give you both things. One is fuel efficiency, as well as it will give you speed and water. So all these is possible. That is why you take, instead of 5 days, you take about 7 to 10 days for a you can say steaming purpose. So so that is what one has to actually, as I said, that it is not similar. It is not akin to mainland shipping or coastal shipping. It is akin to road transport. So if you are moving, you can say, a trailer on a particular, you can say, OD pair, you should, or you would ensure that what is the condition of the road, what are all is available. So something very similar, but once you do it, it will happen. Another thing which I would like to also state here is that if the barges start to move, there will be automatic scoring that will happen. So certain depths increase. If you look at an example of Goa itself, the Goa waterway, if I go back, the average size of the barge used to be in olden days about 750 metric tons. Today, the barges that are plying are in the range of 3,000 metric tons, and with very little dredging that has happened. So that is, it is not just because what is there is water which is moving, and it is fine sand. It is only in a very small stretch, there is a hard strata, which is actually near Gazipur. So but that has been dredged, and luckily, generally there is no siltation in that stretch. I mean, the hard strata stretch. Once one knows the depth.
Thank you.
In Solanki, this is Captain Singh.
Sir.
You said 2,000 ton barge. 2,000 ton barge will have a draft of 3.2 meters if you load full cargo. And you are saying draft of 2.5 meters. I don't think 2,000 ton barge can operate in the IWT.
No, 2,000 ton barge, if you look at our Beki, they are loading in 2.8 meter, 2,000 tons. So the present barges that are available, they are operating at 3.2 meter, 2,300 metric tons. We are actually loading, and the depth in that is about the draft is about 3.2 to 3.5 meter. But as I said, that there is tide which is available. So in the stretch, in the given stretch between Kolkata to Mongla or Kolkata to Narayanganj, there is no problem if one actually uses the tide and navigate.
But we are talking about Inland Waterway 1 and Inland NW2 and all that to Assam and even to Patna and beyond. There the water 2.5 meters, then you cannot have a barge of 2,000 tons. That is what I'm trying to say.
No, see what is possible. That's why I said initially itself that what is required is that you have a flotilla of 1,000 ton barges each. So the 1,000 ton barge, you have flotilla with the tug. So the tug would have we can say the tug with capacity to be able to push these two barges would have a draft or would require a depth of 2 meters. And then you have again the barges of 1,000 ton each, which will be able to carry. So we have, you can say, a set of barges which is presently doing pilot trip. In fact, we had made the first pilot trip for the purpose of physical, you can say, feasibility of moving pond ash all the way from Bhagalpur to Pandu, and we had used this one tug with a flotilla of barges. So that is basically as far as the width or depth of barge is concerned. As I said, that you have to have a barge fit for a particular waterway. There is no one solution. If I tell you that you can, so each barge, when I'm looking at a barge, if you increase the beam, your depth will reduce. For example, as I said, in case of I and Beki, the number of barges which are available of 2,000 tons are very few. We are very lucky that we don't have Indian tonnage of IWT as much available. So what is possible is that you construct wider barges. When you construct wider barges, definitely the draft requirement will reduce. So
the tug requirement, as what you are saying, will have at least 6,000 bhp tug to push 2,000 tons two barges.
No, not necessarily. 2,000 ton bhp is good enough. I can share. There is a design which is available on IWA website. You may have a look on that. Also, if look at the some of the tenders which has been floated by IWI. So that is a push tug barge flotilla, which has got both the you can say capacity, draft, etc. of the tug as well as of the barges. So that is available on the IWI website. So you can actually have a look at that, and you will be able to know basically that it is possible to do such movement. In fact, one movement, a round trip movement has happened now with Ocean Whale. So where they moved Tata Steel from Haldia to Pandu, and they're bringing coal down from Pandu to Kolkata. So with the same set of push tug barge flotilla.
This is Captain Jacob Thomas here again from Cochin.
Sir, please.
Yeah, coming back to National Waterway 3, I have a company called Unique Bunkers and Marine Services. We do bunkering. So the IWA promises you 2.5 meters depth, but there are Number of times that my barge has run aground going up to Inderveer, that's the BPCL refinery. And when you lodge a complaint, so whatever profit I make on the trip, I lose in the repairs of the engine or the propeller. And I brought this matter up to the IVA, and they say we have the dredgers, but we don't have the manpower to operate the dredgers. Okay, these are, I mean, this is just an observation that I'm making, you know. So unless the infrastructure is provided, you cannot, and you cannot really economically viable to operate such barges, because whatever profit you make, you lose. Second point, the IVA, you know, the main authority in Delhi, they have the foggiest clue between deadweight capacity and they still use GRT. GRT is redundant. It's GT. They mention they say GT per you know, kilometer, or you know, totally confused. You know, so I tell them, you know, when they send a form, you know, they send that form to fill up and see that, you know, how, you know, what ton mileage has been, how much cargo has been moved. But they refer to GT. They're not referring to the deadweight carrying capacity of the barge or the cargo. So I think, like you said, the inclusion of master mariners or CMMI in these organizations, like recently I have in fact made a representation on behalf of CMMI to the Chief Minister for inclusion of master mariners, engineers in the Kerala Maritime Board, which is very, very essential, because everybody who actually deals with, you know, shipping is our backyard, you know, and we're sitting here and somebody else is taking care of and making a big mess. So these are just observations. Can you just comment on it, please?
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. It is not that I do not agree that, of course, there are certain these things do happen and have happened because I have operated barges. In fact, even now I have barges which I operate, and these type of problems do happen. And I agree that what is required is more professionalism in the department as well as in the understanding. And that can only happen when we ourselves then not only just raise, also do, if required, hand-holding or follow-up. So if you start to follow up, then it is possible that solutions would be found. So that only problem is that when we are in problem, we actually raise the issue, but then subsequently we do not follow up. So we need to actually follow up by, I think, maybe officially writing to the department, copy to the higher ups, so that it is on record, and not for the purpose of anything else, but basically for the purpose of following up and some improvement in the system.
Thank you, sir.
Captain Solanki, what is the status of the River Information Service? A question has been asked on the chat box.
The River Information Service up to Farakka is operational. It is virtual, and in fact, because from Farakka to Patna and from Patna to Varanasi, so it was already tendered out. It has been put in place, but some synchro, you can say, software. What I would say, the merger of software, or you can say, because the National Waterway 1 is a different software and NW2 was a different the Farakka Patna stretch was different. So I think there is a need of handshake between the two software. So after that, that would be also fully operational. Up to Farakka, it is fully operational.
What about beyond Farakka? It will take how long? A year, 2 years?
No, it is. I think actually I will check what is the latest update. What I have is presently, because I had checked it roughly about, I think about a month or 2 months back. So they were saying that it will be done by April, May. So maybe it has been done. I can check on that.
The last pilot project reported that River Information Service between Patna and Varanasi was not functional.
I clearly said that as far as Patna Varanasi is concerned, they were tendered out, they were given to a vendor. The vendor had put in place, but some testing, etc., had to happen, and some software, you can say, hand holding, rather not software hand holding, basically coming on a single platform. So something like that was to. So that was my feedback, what I had about a month back. I don't have the exact as of now current scenario.
Do advise us.
I will let you know. No problem.
What is in your experience of the last 3 or 4 pilot projects that have happened? It would be nice, and I have been asking the department for this tabulated outcome of these voyage costs of these 4 or 5 pilot projects that have happened, both on IBP and NW1 and NW2.
See, as far as the costs are concerned, what we have done, as I said, that the pilot movements are done for 2 purposes mainly. One is for the purpose of physical movement. As I said, that what we did was we moved a Pustak barge flotilla to check the width and navigability of the flotilla around the bends, especially on IBP route as well as on the National Waterway 1. And that was successful. That means that the flotilla of a wider, you can say, beam was possible to be moved. As far as the costs are concerned, the costs would be in the range of about, you can say, 2 rupees per ton kilometer, because these are not commercially viable run. If I take, for example, Bhagalpur to Guwahati, it is a very long distance, about 2,200 odd kilometers. So to move a product like fly ash would not be commercially viable. And so it was done basically for 2 purposes. One was to check basically the waterway. Second was to basically make people aware that the waterway is, you can say, functional, and to spread awareness about the program. As far as the pilot movement of, you can say, we had moved cement between Haldia to Bhagalpur. So these, or Haldia to Bhagalpur, Haldia to Sahibganj. So these pilot movements were actually commercially viable movements. But as far as the vessels that were used at that point of time was only 300 metric tons. But once the costs were, you can say, calculated for a 2,000 metric ton, so these are commercially viable products, OD pairs. And a number of queries are there, number of, you can say, companies, shipping, the cement companies like Ambuja have been in touch with me. They want to move cargo between these pairs. So that was commercially viable. Something similar as far as Maruti movement is concerned. When we moved Maruti cars from Varanasi to Kolkata, so that was actually a very feasible project and commercially viable project. The cost, but what was required was the movement was done to give assurance to Maruti that their cars can be moved by waterway, because they were scared that because they are new cars and there will be damages to the cars, etc. So therefore they did not want. So it took 1 year to get them on board to give cars for movement by waterway. So after that we moved. The number of cars moved were very few. It was not a logistically, commercially logistic movement. But a vessel of that, a vessel of a particular size, I think it has been designed. If it is built and moved between Varanasi to Kolkata with return cargo of, you can say, valuable goods with return cargo, it will be a commercially viable project. So because a car carrier would need a lesser draft, that was the reason why actually that was suitable. In fact, we were also looking at bringing cars in return or vehicles in return from Calcutta, or lighter goods from that region into Varanasi. So that is, as far as, so these are the pilot movement. The container movement, I think, as I said, that on the eastern side, we do not have hardly any containerization is there on the east coast or on east part of the country. So unless until though the container has, the container industry itself has gone through the roof. So it is not you can say opportune time for the IWT sector to get into container transportation. Otherwise, container transportation, I consider containers as again a storehouse on the move. If I have suppose 10 barges with 100 containers each, so I'm moving actually that much volume. It is available, whether it is food grain, because most of the requirement of waterway need which we have and you can say received is during monsoon time or movement of grain. During the same time, fertilizer is to be moved and coal is in movement. So rail, which is catering to these needs, actually gets congested. So there was actually a requirement of movement of these you can say goods through waterway, but we do not have you can say specialized barges for that product. So I am of the opinion that container to and fro would be a better option for doing that trade. That's why the container movement was done. There were 3-4 container pilot movements were done, including bringing in lighter and valuable cargo from Kolkata because of the draft restrictions. But as I said, that we need to develop a complete logistic solution. It will take time. Things take time. As I said, in case of Maruti or even Pepsi, it took about a long time for those pilot projects to actually get on the field.
Thank you, Captain Solanki. There are no more questions. I do have one question, last one for you. What is the status of the IV draft rules, and what is the status of the IV limit? Is the 1976 DGS circular on smooth and partially smooth waters overruled by the IV draft rules, or they both live together?
As far as the IV Act is concerned, the IV Act is in force. IV rules until I think 24th or 25th of March, the rules were available. The draft rules were available for comments. So that timeline passing now, it is being corrected for legal ministry. So the IV rules are with the, I think, Ministry of Law or Ministry of Shipping, because they were put on website for comments for a month. So for public opinion, that was so that is the status as far as the IV rules are concerned. As far as the IV limit is concerned, the IV Act itself states very clearly and that the inland water is, you can say, within the baseline, but beyond the baseline, 5-kilometer corridor is there, as well as the central government can give other directions pertaining to the increase of IV limits. So therefore, as far as the also the older MS Act would stand, because again it is the central government where it comes in there. I think Captain Dubey has his hand raised. Sir, kindly you may ask your question. Captain Dubey.
Yeah, good afternoon, Captain Solanki. It's very nice, very informative lecture you have presented.
Thank you, sir.
But I've got two questions. One is what is the total price of a barge or the inland water vessel? The second question is about the examination system of the inland waterways personnel. How they will be examined and their certification process, and how the CMMI can come into that to have their examination conducted and their certification. Is it possible, and how CMMI can come into that? These are two questions I've got for you.
Yes, sir. First is as far as the cost of barge is concerned, it would be in the range of 8 crore for a 2,000 ton metric barge. So that would be, you can say, approximately the numbers with the steel prices going up and down, or the other, it may vary plus minus, I think 10% you can take on that. So that is what would be the cost of inland barge. As far as the examination system is concerned, the examination system, the existing IV Act, or rather the previous IV Act, as per that, also as per the present IV Act, the state IWT department has the authority to examine and certify the inland vessel crew. So they have the authority to certify, and they give the certificate of competency for inland vessel, you can say master, first class or second class master, and Sirang, and now third class master, third class master. Then we have similarly for the engine side, you have driver, two driver, the inland engineer, and first class driver, like that. So these are the 6 competencies which are being issued by the state departments, IWT department. Now, as far as the West Bengal is concerned, they have given the examination system to BEST. So that is taking care of the examination system as far as the West Bengal is concerned. As far as the government of Bihar is concerned, the examination system is with the NINI, that is National Inland Navigation Institute, whereby any member of, I think, CMMI Patna branch can be an external examiner under that and under those rules. So similarly, I think CMMI can take step forward for getting, you can say, empaneled with the state departments for coming into or looking into the examination or certification of the IB sector manpower.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
So there's a quick one. What is the type of barge used for carrying cars? Is it flat top, old barges? What kind of barges?
Basically, it will be a flat top barge with you have what we call as the framework, which is you can say open-ended framework. In our case, what we had done was IWI has got a Ro-Ro barge which is covered, whereby one could actually. There was a plan to you can say build tiers into that because the height of that hold was roughly about 6.5 meters. But then the cost and the modification in the government setup is slightly difficult process to actually take. So therefore, it did not materialize. So that's why
you drive in and drive out of this barge which you use for Maruti.
Yeah, in this case, we had it was drive in, drive out with a ramp.
Thank you, sir.
When you're saying, when you're talking about the barges with the tug, so is it a pushing barge or are you pulling the tug?
Pushing barges.
Like in Thailand, you see train barges where a tug is pulling about 6 or 7 barges along. So that is, in my opinion, it's more controlled that way rather than pushing. In India, we are using pushing barges.
Yeah, actually, pushing barges is what is being used in India, not pulling. Pulling is actually has got its own limitation. You need a comparatively, you can say, the pulling barges is possible where both banks are, or the deeper bank is soft and higher. So what happens is, because most of the time when you pull the barges, so the pulling barge will its stern will 90% touch the bank on the aft side, because they leave it open, and then once they had made the turn, then they pull, and so that is not possible with the hard banks or the banks where we have shallows also. So in our case, we have hard banks, and also population is there on the both sides of Ganga. If we look at from Farakka to Kolkata. So you have hard banks. So what will happen is that the barges, because the currents are very strong, and so it is most of them would actually you can say bang into the banks. So therefore push is used here, and instead of pull is economically better in downstream. When you are coming loaded, then it is pulling is better, because you are using the current and you're just giving direction. So in those waters, it is pulling is better, because if you are to push against the current, your power requirement will be roughly about 20% higher when you're pulling compared to pushing. But if you are just coming down using the flow of the current, that is what mostly done in Indonesia or in Thailand, where they use pull barges, because they come very slow. They use the current, they just drift down and just keep on, giving the direction to the barges, not actually propelling them. So that is the difference. So there when you have majority of the cargo downstream, then the power requirement is less, and you can use pull barges. And because upstream you're going in ballast, so then the fuel consumption would not be required. So that is the scenario.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Captain Solanki, for interesting and interactive session. I hand over to Shashi Kumar to do the next formality.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. Firstly, first thing I would like to thank all the participants here for the very interactive session, and a special thanks to Captain Inderveer Solanki, who has taken his time out to give us an insight into today's webinar on opportunities and challenges in inland waterway sector. Excellent informative presentations. Thank you, sir. I would like to thank Captain Subedar for introducing the speaker, moderating the session, getting the best out of the speaker, and also conducting the Q&A. I would like to thank the press, Marek, Seajob, Mandarka Shipping, Sailor Today, Saga Sandesh, Maritime Destination. A special thanks to Nangya for Sailor Today YouTube. I would like to thank Captain Pradhan, our Deputy Master, who's actually the backbone or the brain behind the CMMI webinars, and also for the welcome address of today. Our office staff, Sudhir Palka, for the back-end support. I would like, last but not the least, I would like to thank each and every participant, without whom our today's webinar would not have been possible. Thank you all, and thank you all for a very interactive session. Thank you, sirs.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Have a nice weekend.
Thank you, sir.
Have a nice weekend.
Hmm?